What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for my top 25 heading into Week 8. Yes, Week 8, the college football season is flying by. It always goes by so quickly. Well, let's just jump right in here. We're going to start at the bottom, work our way up to the top, and we start here with 21 through 25. North Carolina at number 25. Had to get a late touchdown to beat Duke. Really good game there. I know Duke is not as bad as they have been. I mean, they've been decent this year, but still, that you'd like to see North Carolina win that game a little bit easier if they're going to stay in the top 25. But hey, they're 6-1. Only loss coming to Notre Dame. Notre Dame just lost, though, so that kind of hurts. But it's really all about the record for North Carolina. They are 6-1, and the offense is really good, and that's why they come into the top 25, although they don't have any real great wins right now. So we'll see if North Carolina can stay in the top 25. Like I said, really good offense. That's what's keeping them in the top 25 right now. Kansas State at number 24 at 5-1. Didn't play this weekend. They've got a big game coming up against TCU. Tulane beat Kansas State head-to-head, and so that's why I do now have Tulane in my top 25. Both teams have one loss. Kansas State, really, it's all about the win over Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, it turns out is not that great. So, I mean, we really don't know a ton about Kansas State. They also blew out Missouri. That was impressive. Missouri was really struggling early in the year. But, yeah, Kansas State, if they could beat TCU, that's going to probably shoot them up ahead of Tulane and maybe even in the top 15 if they can win that game. Maybe even higher than that if they're impressive. We'll see. But, yeah, Tulane 6-1. Because of their head-to-head win over Kansas State, they come in just ahead of Kansas State. They've got some decent wins on their resume as well. Mississippi State at number 22. Tough loss to Kentucky on the road. Will Levis was back for Kentucky, and this is a different Kentucky team with him at quarterback, obviously. But this is still a pretty good Mississippi State team. I've got them at 5-2. They're at 5-2. I've got them at number 22. LSU at number 21. They are also 5-2. They beat Mississippi State, so they've got the head-to-head there. And then a nice win over Florida. The loss to Tennessee, we really penalized them because they got blown out, but all of a sudden it looks like Tennessee's really, really good, and so I don't penalize LSU as much for that loss. The game kind of got away from them early with some turnovers. They gifted them points on that opening kickoff fumble. So LSU at number 21, I believe this is a top 25 team. Offense really got going against Florida. The defense has been a little inconsistent this year, but we've seen them look good on that side of the ball at times as well. LSU's a team that's just kind of figuring it out, but they do have a lot of potential. So here's 21 through 25. Let's go now to 16 through 20. Purdue at number 20. They are 5-2. They got a big win on Saturday over Nebraska, a Nebraska team that's been playing a little bit better. You look at their losses, though. They lost to Syracuse, and then they lost to Penn State. So they lost to top 15 teams. And then they have the win over Minnesota. That was a big win for them. So they're at 5-2 and looking for a big win coming up. They're going to have Illinois coming up, and I've talked about that game is probably going to decide the Big Ten West, which is just crazy. It's just crazy. Who would have thought that in the preseason? Texas at number 19, 5-2. Offense struggled a little bit against a good Iowa State defense. They've got a big test coming up against Oklahoma State, so we'll find out about Texas in that game. They've looked so good at times, and at other times just haven't looked great against Iowa State, against Texas Tech. It's kind of hard to figure out what's going on with Texas. But hey, they're 5-2. I don't think this season's going to get away from them like it did last year. I think this is a team that has a really good shot to get to the Big 12 championship and get 5-2. Much better record than where they were last year. Kentucky at number 18, also at 5-2. So here's the deal with Kentucky. They've got a top 25 win over Mississippi State. Also, I'm not going to penalize them for the South Carolina loss because they did not have Will Levis. Will Levis didn't play in that game, was injured. So that's why I have Kentucky up at number 18. If they had lost with a healthy Will Levis, Kentucky would probably be a little bit lower for me. But then again, South Carolina is a two-loss team. South Carolina is a team that is getting consideration to be in the top 25 right now. So that's not a horrible loss. Kentucky with Will Levis is a really good team. Went on the road and beat Florida. They were very close to beating Ole Miss on the road. So, yes, I got the Wildcats at 18. 17 is Utah coming off of a huge win against USC. Big win to add to their resume. You look at their losses. On the road at Florida, week 1. Had a chance to win that game. And then also UCLA, who's undefeated right now. So Utah is looking really good at number 17. I believe they're my highest ranked 2-loss team. And number 16 is Illinois. It's time for me to admit that Illinois is a good football team. This is a good football team, sound on defense. They can run the ball. And with Tommy DeVito in there, it gives them a little bit more of a passing game than I expected them to have. So Illinois is a good team, and they've got a chance to win the Big Ten West. Like I said, that Purdue game will probably determine that, and I believe that is at Illinois. So they're going to have a really good shot to win the West, something that I just did not see coming in the preseason. So I'm going to give them credit here. Illinois up to number 16 with a big win over Minnesota, a game I thought they would lose. But yeah, they went out and took care of business. Let's move on now. 11 through 15. Penn State at number 15, pretty big drop for them after they were blown out by Michigan. They do have a win over Purdue, a top 25 win, so that's still something there on the resume. And then also their loss, again, coming to Michigan. They beat Auburn on the road, were really impressive in that game. I don't want to overreact to the Michigan game. I still think this is a good Penn State team. I've got Wake Forest at number 14. They had a chance to beat Clemson. So, you would have to say that Wake Forest should be somewhere pretty close to Clemson in the rankings. They went out and, they had a really good shot to win that game. They've been impressive. They beat Liberty. Liberty's now a team that's in consideration for the top 25. Wake Forest is a good football team. They're 5-1. Oklahoma State is 5-1. Tough loss to TCU. Maybe got a little too conservative there in the second half. Let them come back in this one. But Oklahoma State still ranked pretty high here at number 13. Syracuse at number 12. They are 6-0, and it's time to start recognizing this Syracuse team. Now, NC State didn't have Devin Leary, so that win. If NC State was fully healthy in that game, if they had Devin Leary, and when Syracuse won the way that they did, I'd have them in the top 10, no doubt. But we're still waiting to see them beat a really good team. Purdue is a good win for them. Louisville's a decent win. Still waiting, and they're going to have their opportunity against Clemson to prove that they are a top 10 team. If they lose that game, obviously they're not going to get in the top 10. USC at number 11. Tough loss to Utah. They were on the road, had chances to win that game. I was impressed with USC. I don't think that was a bad performance. Utah's a good team, and it was on the road, a tough environment. USC still kind of looking for that signature win. I guess you could say Oregon State is their best win right now. So the resume is lacking a little bit. And yes, resume does start to come into my top 25s. It's more of a tiebreaker. It's not just all about resume, but if teams are close for me and I can't decide, that's when I go to the resume. All right, let's go to the top 10 now. Oregon at number 10, 5-1. Only loss coming to Georgia week 1, and I still think that if they played today, that game's much closer. I don't think they would beat Georgia, but I think it would be much closer. They've started to dominate in their games, win by a lot of points. Bo Nix playing great, defense playing great. Oregon at number 10. UCLA at number 9. They have the win over Utah. That's a really good win. The Washington win doesn't look as good now, but they're going to have their opportunity against Oregon coming up on Saturday. Huge game. Game day will be there, and we'll find out a little bit more about this UCLA team in that one. Ole Miss at number 8. Not a great performance against Auburn, but they took care of business, got the win. They're going to have a big opportunity against LSU on Saturday. That's going to be a big game. TCU at number 7. They are 6-0. Big win over Oklahoma State. You remember they blew out Oklahoma. That was a big win for them. Kansas State coming up next. If they can win that game, I think you could put TCU in the driver's seat to at least make it to the Big 12 Big 12 championship game. TCU 6-0 and just a gutsy win over Oklahoma State. You got to be happy if you're a TCU fan, the way that team was able to fight and get back in that game and win it. Alabama at number 6, 6-1. Some people are going to say that this team maybe shouldn't even be ranked this high because what have they really done? Well, they beat a good Texas team on the road. And again, I go back to the Texas A&M game. They didn't have Bryce Young. I'm viewing this team with a healthy Bryce Young because he now is back on the team. He only missed one game or 1.5 games, whatever. But for Alabama, it's really about Tennessee. So if Tennessee is a top 5 team, Alabama just went on the road and was a missed field goal away from beating a top 5 team on the road. That tells me Alabama is really good. Now, if Tennessee is not that good, if Tennessee is not a top 5 team, then maybe Alabama's not the 6th best team in the country. But I think Tennessee has showed us that they are legit. If you go back and look at what they did on the road at LSU, this is a really good football team. Again, Alabama had a chance to beat a top 5 team on the road and almost did it. That's why I've got Alabama here ahead of TCU, Ole Miss, UCLA. We haven't seen those teams play top 5 teams, so we're still trying to kind of figure out how legit these teams are. All right, end up going to my top 5. I know we're going to make some people angry here. I'll try to explain it the best I can. This is my top 5. So Clemson at number 5. Yes, they've got wins over NC State and Wake Forest and Florida State, all quality wins, but they just haven't been as dominant as some of these teams ahead of them. They haven't played a great team just yet, so that's why I've still got Clemson at number 5. Just at times haven't looked like a top 5 team, although at times they have. So it's just been a little bit of inconsistency with Clemson, but I think they have proven that they are a very good team. They are a top 5 team. And Ohio State's a team that I think people are going to be upset about because I have them at number 4. It's not Ohio State's fault. I'm not saying that Ohio State is not the best team or the second best team in the country. I'm just saying that I don't know that. There's nothing that has proven that to me because they have not played anyone really of any quality. If you look at who they have played this year, the only team that Ohio State has played that has a winning record is Toledo. Notre Dame is now 3-3. Notre Dame is not a great team. They just lost to Stanford. Wisconsin is pretty awful. Michigan State is not good at all. Rutgers, not good. I mean, they just have not played anyone. So you can assume that they're really good because they have performed really well against bad teams. And you can assume that they are one of the best teams in the country. And I believe that they are. But at the same time, there just hasn't been anything that has proven that to me. Michigan has now played Penn State. Tennessee has now played Alabama. Georgia has played Oregon. You know, you look at these teams, they've played really good teams. And I think you could even make an argument for Clemson. They've played Wake Forest. They've played NC State. Although, again, they haven't been as dominant as some of these other teams. But Ohio State, we're just waiting on them to play a great team. Now, they're going to play a good defense in Iowa. So if they go out and they put up 70 points against a good Iowa defense, then maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to prove that they are a top 3 team, top 2 team, whatever. But we just haven't seen that yet. I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm not saying Ohio State is not the best team in the country. They might be. I just have not seen anything that has given me proof of that yet. We will see that, though. They're going to have their opportunities. They'll get Penn State coming up soon. Even a team like Maryland. Let's see what they do against Maryland. At least a quality team. Not a great team, but a quality team. And so it's hard to say where Ohio State is. And we've seen this over and over and over again in college football where a team will be blowing everyone out and they just really aren't playing anyone, and they finally get to go up against a good team, and you find out, well, that team really wasn't as good as we thought. I don't know if that's the case for Ohio State, but like I said, we just don't have the proof yet. I need to see the proof against a quality team. Tennessee at number 3. I mean, you look at the resume for them. They now have a win over Alabama, the best win, I guess, in college football. Yeah, because they beat the highest-ranked one-loss team. They have a road win, a blowout win on the road at LSU. They beat Pitt on the road. They beat Florida. You know, they've got a really good resume. You could argue they have the best resume in the country. And so Tennessee, for me, right now at number 3. Behind Michigan because, all right, so if Alabama's really good and Penn State's really good, Michigan just blew out Penn State. I mean, they completely dominated that game. And I think Michigan is more complete than Tennessee. They've got the defense and they've got the offense. No, Michigan's offense is not as explosive as Tennessee's. Although I could argue that Michigan's offense is just as good as Tennessee's. It's different, but the way they run the football, you could argue that Michigan's offense is just as effective as Tennessee's offense. Yeah, Michigan for me, I mean, I really think you can make an argument for them at number 1. For what they did to Penn State, completely dominated that game. Now, I don't want to overreact to that one game, and you have to look. They don't really have anything else on the resume. You know, they struggled for a while against Indiana. Yeah, they looked great in the second half, but they struggled a little bit in that game. Maryland, they didn't completely dominate. So maybe we are overreacting to one game, But that one game was a big, big game, and they completely dominated Penn State. So that's why I've got Michigan at number 2, Georgia at number 1. For me, this is still the best team in the country. Went back to that game against Oregon, what they did against what now looks to be a pretty good South Carolina team. I mean, they completely destroyed them, completely destroyed Auburn. Vanderbilt's a team that showed a little life against Ole Miss, with Georgia went out and just, I mean, it wasn't even a game. Georgia, when they play at their best, I believe this team is the best team in the country. Yes, they struggle a little bit against Missouri, but every team, Michigan struggled in the first half against Indiana. Tennessee, I guess Tennessee hasn't had any struggles. The Florida game was close for a while. Ohio State, like I said, hasn't really played anybody. But Georgia, to me, I just think that they're the best team in the country. The resume, I think, is very solid. I think it can compare to Michigan and Tennessee. So I'm going to keep them at number 1. We'll see how they look coming up with some big games. Of course, Tennessee right around the corner. Can't wait to see what happens in that matchup. But that's my top 5. That's my top 25. Let's look at the teams I considered. Kansas, Cincinnati, NC State, UCF. So I don't have NC State ranked because they don't have Devin Leary anymore. And without him, I don't think they're a top 25 team. If I was ranking them based off of what they look like with him, if he was coming back, they might still be in my top 25. UCF's a team to watch out for. They're getting really hot. Oregon State just beat Washington State. Big win for them. They've only got 2 losses. Liberty only lost to Wake Forest. This is a team you have to start looking at. Maryland only has 2 losses. They're a good team. And then South Carolina, only 2 losses. So, again, you go back to the resumes for Michigan and Georgia. Maryland and South Carolina starting to look like pretty good wins. So they've got, another win on their resume. Your thoughts on my top 25? Give me your top 25 down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.